Derby County were interested in the signing of Danish midfielder Oscar Fraulo back in the January transfer window. There was a rumoured fee of €3.5 million agreed between Derby County and FC Borussia Mönchengladbach, but the deal never got finalised. Now, the reason for that was discussed in a video earlier on this channel, but for a brief overview, Oscar Fraulo was on loan at FC Utrecht. Borussia Mönchengladbach didn't have a recall clause and Utrecht weren't willing to send him back. Now, the reason they weren't willing to send him back was because they had a clause to potentially buy the player at the end of the deal, but that does not seem to be happening as a result of recent reports. Now, the Danes' contract runs out in 2026, but it is expected that a buyer will be found in this summer transfer window. And obviously, the clubs that are being mentioned are those who were interested back in January, and Derby County are one of those, along with the likes of Mainz 05 and Hanover 96, who have all expressed an interest in that versatile midfielder. Now, obviously, before any sort of move is imminent, there's still a massive opportunity for Oscar Fraulo at FC Utrecht. I believe they've got 3 or 4 games left in their season, and I believe they're 4th place, or they could finish 4th place to secure qualification for the Europa League. And obviously, that sort of opens the door for Oscar Fraulo to be able to sort of say, well, I deserve to be at a European club, etc. Now, obviously, when it comes to a player like Oscar Fraulo, I'm just going to get up the league table. They're currently sitting 4th in the division, which is a European position, and they have, it's 2 fixtures left now, on the 14th and on the 18th of May, and Oscar Fraulo was part of their last game up against FC 20, where he played in that midfield role, full 90 minutes, and played at a 6.8 rating. Now, will Derby County sign Oscar Fraulo? Is it a player who Derby County are going to need? Now, if we look at the depth chart of Derby County, we look at the midfield. We've got Kenzo Helmine, we've got Ibu Adams, and we've got Ben Osborne. Now, you could potentially argue and say Jake Rooney could play in that position. You could bring up a player like Cruz Allen, but obviously Derby County are going to want to improve on what they had last season rather than go backwards. Now, if a fee was reportedly agreed in the January window, then I believe Derby County could go back in and sort of reassess that deal, lower the fee. Obviously, less time left on his contract. There's less of a move to be made by Gladbach to pull the player back. And I do believe that Derby County should go in for this player. I think Oscar Fraulo is an unbelievably talented player, and I think that shows in his performances this season. He's one of those sort of sitting midfielders that likes to be able to play with the ball and likes to make things happen, and that's something that I like to see from my midfielders, and I think it's what Derby County have been missing this season. He's not quite your Kenzo Helmine, but he's also not quite your Ibu Adams. He's got the technical ability of Kenzo, as well as having that defensive ability as well. And I do think that he could be a very, very good player for Derby County. Now, across the course of this season, he's played 28 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, 3 yellow cards, 1,743 minutes across the course of this season. Obviously playing across the course of those midfield roles, where he's played 10 times in the sitting midfield role, 6 times as that attacking midfielder, and 5 times as sort of a more box-to-box midfielder. Now, obviously, the real conversation about Fraulo has to be is, can Derby County afford this deal without getting any sort of investment in? Because obviously he's valued at around €3.5 million. The fee that was rumoured to be agreed back in January was around that fee as well. And I do think it opens up the door for some big conversations for Derby, because I think that back in January we had money available to spend, and the problem was that players didn't want to come and join us. And that's something that I've spoken about a few times across the course of this channel, across the course of, the last 6 weeks or so. And I believe that Derby County can go and pick up Fraulo. And I think Fraulo has got a massive career ahead of him. 21 years old, he's capped 19 times for Denmark's under-21s. What isn't there to like about this player? He is versatile. He can play anywhere across midfield. He can play on the right, play on the left. Ultimately, his main position is through that middle, and you probably wouldn't want to put him in those wide positions, but we've seen with Kenzo a few times this season to get him on the ball with a bit more space. Not that I necessarily agree with it, but I understand sort of the process behind it. Now, if we look at his previous clubs. He's played for Midtjylland, he's played for Borussia Mönchengladbach, and obviously for FC Utrecht. He's made a total of 142 appearances, 21 goals, 30 assists, 25 yellows and 2 red cards, 9,834 minutes. That does include some youth appearances for Midtjylland's youth league team, Mönchengladbach's second team, Utrecht's under-21s and stuff like that as well. But I just believe that if there is a deal to be agreed, if he is available, I just don't understand why Derby County wouldn't be in for it. Now, I understand some of you will probably then turn around and go, but what about Mainz? What about Hanover? Now, that is a great question because both of those two clubs, Mainz have just qualified for, I believe, the Conference League. I'm not entirely sure where Hanover have finished in the division. I actually think they may not be in the Bundesliga anymore. I believe they may be in Bundesliga 2. Shall we just check where Hanover are? I believe that these clubs, like, they're great teams. And, yeah, they're in the second Bundesliga, just finished 8th. Now, I think we have a decent chance of getting him over Hanover, but over Mainz, I think that's a completely different conversation. Now, the big thing will be, and the big bonus that Derby County have, is that we're essentially 46 games away from £100 million a year. That's where we are. That's where Derby County are right now after staying in the division. And we're 46 games away from playing in the best league in the world. And that's where everybody wants to play in the Premier League. A lot of teams will turn around and go that the Premier League isn't the best league in the world, blah-de-blah, blah-de-blah. But ultimately, a season in the Premier League is worth so much money. It is absolutely redonkulous. And the eyes put on you in the Premier League, it can change your career, in my opinion. And I think that Fraulo has the opportunity to come to Derby County, spend 2 years, maybe 3 years in the Championship, perfect his craft. Obviously, it all depends on where Derby County go this season and things like that. But he can perfect his craft. He can move on in a couple of years' time. I think there's a similar circumstance going on with Kenzo Helmine as well, where you could sort of see him move on at the end of next season if he finds that form and ability that we saw earlier on this season and can hit that consistently. But the big question has to be is where is it going to come from, and where would Fraulo end up if he stayed at Derby? Now, I think that a player like Fraulo needs to be at sort of a possession-based team, a team that's going to keep the ball, a team that's going to try and sort of outplay their opposition rather than sort of sit back counter. But ultimately, players like this can show off their passing range, can show off their vision in teams like we were across the course of the last 12 weeks, was it, since John Eustace came in. And I'm not saying that if we're playing like that, I don't think Fraulo's the right player for us. But if we're going to be a team who's going to be able to sort of get on the ball, use our wide men, use our central players and actually play football, then I think it's a brilliant move for Fraulo. And I think when you look at those other teams, Hanover and Mainz are probably going to be in those similar positions. I think the only thing that Mainz has over Derby is obviously that conversation around European football. But ultimately, if he comes and has a good season at Derby, gets up to the Premier League, has a good season again in the Premier League, he could quite easily find himself at another top 5 European league, playing in European competitions. It's not like it's out of the question. He is only 21 years old. It turns 22 in December. So it's a very, very good conversation to have about Oscar Fraulo. And I think obviously the conversation regarding what happened in the January window will obviously come up again should this deal be assessed. And I do think it will be assessed. But you can obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Do you think Derby County should sign Oscar Fraulo? If so, how much would you be willing to pay? Obviously valued at €3.5 million. Back in January, a rumoured fee of €3.5 million was agreed. Does that now come down to between 2.5? You can obviously have your say down in the comments. And if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hit the like button to push this video to brand new audiences, and I'll catch you in the next one.